faces. Let's do that again. Good morning to you, Mr. Gary Griffith, political leader of the NTA. Good morning to you. How are you?
But you wearing PDP colors today?
Never. Good morning, gentlemen.
That look like PDP. Paul, in your colors, are you in PDP colors?
I'm going to take it off, yes?
Please don't. Please don't.
Man?
Please, but we might get 1,000 more views, people logging on to see Gary Griffith. Take it off. I don't think in your present condition you need to do that. Wait until your meniscus heal fully and then you can train again and then you can.
Hey, I lost 17 pounds walking and it was one thing I've been successful with. 17 pounds walking.
So you only have 35 more to lose.
32. Don't exaggerate.
This walking really makes you lose weight, yeah? But it's good for you. Politics is good for you in that aspect. That walking about, it's good for you.
Well, if it is there's something called reincarnation and I'm a politician in the next life, I want to be a politician in Barbados where all the land flat.
Yeah.
But in Trinidad, oh gosh, it's Paramin, it's Calvary.
And then if you don't walk with your candidates, nobody coming out to greet them. They're coming out because you're there. So you have to walk.
Well, yeah, that is true. But the good thing is that they said in all those places when they've never seen a political leader be PNM for 60 years in any of those places. So interesting.
You had time to
the PNM area.
You had time to come back.
We had a bet on earlier this morning, Gary Griffith, that you could get through the next 45 minutes without saying Keith Rowley.
And you just lose it already.
Okay,
no, you didn't say he's a political leader. You didn't say.
Let's say Mr. Landit. Okay.
But Gary Griffith, I want to start off this morning because I won't take up too much of your time, but there is something that happened on the political platform that disturbed me no end. And I have to say that based on all the years that I've known you, I didn't expect it coming from you. And that was your attack on Minister Marvin Gonzalez, and I'm going to call his name because you called his name, Minister Marvin Gonzalez, concerning his presumed sexuality. I didn't like it at all, and I didn't expect it from you. And I think you owe him an apology. Jack Warner did it and got away with it, and I didn't expect any different from Jack Warner. But honestly, I didn't expect it from you, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, well,
so I have to get that off my chest earlier.
Yeah, no problem. Dan, definitely you're 100% incorrect. At no time did I even allude to anything like that. What I said is that Marvin Gonzalez, he started with speaking about my political party.
I don't want you to repeat it, no.
No, God, I'm not. I'm going to tell you exactly what I said. And it reminds me of the same thing. When politicians make a comment, people deliberately turn it in one certain direction to benefit themselves. It reminds me when I said anybody who murders someone in cold blood, anybody who rapes a minor, I see them as a cockroach. And people in the PNM deliberately say Gary said black people are cockroaches, which was a lie. I have never said that. What I said is if somebody rapes a minor, if somebody kidnaps someone, they are a cockroach. And you deliberately turn it into that to benefit yourself. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar said, empty the clip, you automatically feel that she's trying to say that when you shoot someone, you must finish them off. She never said that. Empty the clip could very well be when several people invade your home, you have to fire as many rounds as possible to be able to suppress them, to give you a fighting chance, which is why I lifted the ammunition from 25 to 50. This is no different. Marvin Gonzalez jumps up to start saying that the NTA is nothing more than a family planning association. He drew first blood. And what made it? And so he continued to give false information based on hearsay. So what I said is that Marvin Gonzalez reminds me so much of a song because one of my favorite singers is Marvin Gaye because he had this song, I heard it through the grapevine. I said he reminds me a lot about Marvin Gaye because of the song that he had, I've heard it through the grapevine. If you decide to put it into that means your mind is a little warped. Because I was speaking about Marvin Gaye, the singer, who with his song, I heard it through the grapevine. That is what I said. I never said anything other than that. So if you think that, Wendell, your brain needs a little bit of cleaning.
Clever attempt, but I'll leave it right there.
No, it's the same thing about cockroaches. It's the same thing about empty the clip. It is the typical PNM propaganda. Take someone's sentence and deliberately turn it in one direction in the hope that you can trigger a response to get certain people to go against you. It's not working again, Wendell. That thing is not working anymore.
Okay. All right.
Gary, good morning. What is the because the election is coming up on Monday, it's a couple of days away, and your party has been launched in a big way. I think even one of your greatest adversaries, Mr. Alexander, earlier on in the week said you're getting a lot of press. I think a lot of that has to do with your national profile. So the party has benefited from that. What is the NTA's mandate in this election? And I heard on several of your comment on your platforms, you said that when we are elected, suggesting that you have plans for further than the Monday local government election. What is the NTA's mandate? What is the NTA about?
It is definitely about what the country has not seen for the last 8 years, which is good governance. And I am not here to try to give the sound dance, which I've heard other political leaders try, stating that we are going to do this and we are going to fix your box train and fix your roads. That is what you usually have. What I am promising is accessibility. And sometimes people just want that. I have walked the length and breadth, as I was explaining to Wendell, from Scorpion and Caranage, Waterhole and Cocorite, Bagatelle, Sealots, Laventille Road, Aruka, Trincity, Macoya, throughout Point Fortin, throughout Arima. And everywhere that I have gone, especially in that east-west corridor, apart from the fact that there's been an absence of actually serving persons, inclusive of local government, a void of leadership. So yeah, as I mentioned, when they saw me, they said it's the first time in those places they've ever seen a political leader, even Sealots and all of that, they've ever seen a political leader in that area. And that's supposed to be PNM country. And the councillors, Bar Wendell and a couple others, they have never seen the councillors after 4 years. And that says a lot. So what I want to give the assurance is that our job is to make sure we are accessible. It's the same thing I did as Commissioner of Police when I made sure that every single person can contact me if they want. And that is what I think the country needs, to make sure that when you vote for someone, they're accessible. So we can blame you, we can complain about something. And we intend to put the same models that I use. I heard a political leader earlier this week, gentlemen, speak about, well, Gary's a one-trick pony. And that is where I beg to differ. Because as a commissioner of police, the same way I was able to transform the police service by forming a good team. That's what the NT intends to do. Form a team of the best minds available to have a roadmap towards the transformation of Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister used that word transformation 8 times in his last meeting. He understands the importance of it. And so when you speak about Gary Griffith, it's not about me fighting crime. As a commissioner of police, you and a Minister of National Security, leading 20,000 persons or 7,000 based on the positions that I had, 117 buildings, $2 billion in trying to balance. You have to deal with fiscal management, you have to deal with human resource management, emotional intelligence, strategic leadership, organizational transformation. So the same way we were able to transform the police service, by using principles of leadership, accountability, management, and measurement of performance, we intend to do the same thing to transform Trinidad and Tobago in every arm of the public service to serve the country better.
Why then would you join with the UNC if that's the NTA's thing? Why would you have joined with the UNC, who you knew very well did not support you, and of course you fired you, and all the other things that they would have said? Why would you have joined with the UNC then to achieve it?
Well, just to jump in on that question, Gary, because of course I follow a lot of your posts and stuff that come in, and oftentimes you've posted up polls that showed that the NTA by itself was doing pretty well in terms of those Instagram polls in comparison to UNC and the PNM. And NTA had a considerable lead. So connected to Wendell's question, if I may just tack that on, if that polling is to be believed, it clearly shows that NTA can go it alone, if you are to believe that poll.
Yeah, and again, there are polls and there are polls. Any poll that is done on social media or online, it is going to be flawed. So for example, if 95.5, which is a PNM station basically, if they do a poll, Keith Rowley is going to win by 98%. There are other stations that are heavily UNC affiliated. So some of the polls, so if you have a poll with Inch and Ishmael, which is basically anti-government, you're going to get it skewed to the point that it's going to be very heavily biased towards the UNC and the NTA. And vice versa. So several of those polls, I don't take that as so because it says 62% are going to vote for the NT or 58%. No, I am very logical. I'm very tactical. There was one scientific poll done so far, gentlemen, one, and that was that poll. They don't go public, and you all know that those pollsters very well, very well. You'll know them. You all know the employers very well. And that scientific poll had a margin of error of 5%, because when you do, and that is sad, we have a national election, Pablo, and not one media house did a scientific poll, which is amazing. But the one media house that did a very scientific poll had PNM 45%, UNC 41%, the NTA 11%, PP 0.3% or whatever, PDP 0.2%. But and again, it is almost identical to 2007, Wendell. So in 2007, the COP got about 13%. So the fact being is, again, if PNM goes against UNC in a two-horse race, PNM will arguably win. When you add the 42 to the 11, you defeat the PNM. The maths is there. So when you going to Wendell's point now, it happened in 1986, it happened in 1995, it happened in 2010, general, 2010 local government. Every single time there's a coalition, the PNM is defeated 100% of the time. Every single time there's not a coalition, the PNM wins, other than one occasion when that government lasted a few months. So that answers your question, Wendell. The fact of the matter is that people complain about coalitions. There are over 80 countries in the world. Almost half of the countries in the world had or have coalition governments. Many have worked, some have not. Governments standing on their own, many have worked, some have not, inclusive of this one. The problem in Trinidad and Tobago is our constitution is so flawed that it does not allow a third party to have any type of proportional representation. So whether it was in 1981 with 91,000 with the ONR, 1991 with 127,000 with the NAR, 2007 with 147,000 with the COP, we changed the letters, but it's the same third bridge constituency.
So let me respond to that. The NAR was decimated after 86 election. They were decimated when they ended up back with 2 seats, right? The COP was decimated they decimated even as they joined with the UNC, right? This no longer existed. So much it's not as the Congress of people anymore, it's the Congress of the person. How could NTA now, with all these proposals and all these lofty aims and objectives, decide now, for the sake of defeating the PNM, because that's what I'm hearing, only to beat the PNM, for the sake of beating the PNM, you're going to join with the UNC, who was the main party who decimated those other parties. Right. Why would you want to join with them?
Okay, so
let me just add something to that, Gary. I mean, since your party has been officially launched, there's been a lot of widespread congratulations, and some people have their concerns depending on where you sit in the political spectrum. And to me, one of the strongest points of concern that has been exposed is that very fact that while people who like Gary Griffith and who like what Gary Griffith stood for as Commissioner of Police lauded you for launching a political party, you aligned with a party that you had condemned, a political leader that you had been very derogatory in terms of some statements about her work ethic, etc. And to me, that had been the biggest point of consternation since your party is launched. How do you reconcile that?
Right, sure. So let me go quickly, and it will go in line with completing Wendell's question. So the fact, Wendell, is that if persons want that third constituency to be part of a government, you must form some type of a strategic alliance. It is a fact, whether you like it or not. So when people, and it will go, Paul, in what you have asked, remember an important point. When it is that I operate what is good for the country. I spoke to Keith Rowley first. I spoke to the PNM first, and you forgot that, Wendell. Conveniently, you forgot that part. I went to Keith Rowley and said, I am willing to work with you. I am willing to support you. I am willing to assist you because you have the most clueless Minister of National Security in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. He doesn't even know his role and function. As a minister, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 30 years. As the Commissioner of Police, it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. The country felt safer. Crime was the number 4 concern behind health, education, and the economy. I am willing to help you. The man said, no, get away. I don't care. So anybody, hold on, Wendell. Hold on, I'm going to
if you approach a man and say you have the most clueless minister of national, you really expect that?
Wait. So, all right. So it goes right back to personality then. So because of, and when I made that offer, had to do with seeing about the country. The country was going down. It was in quicksand from a commissioner in my last year being 342 murders, and the country felt safe. To within a year, over 600 murders, and the country has never been washed in blood. It was my right as a patriot. I'm always a patriot more than a politician. I offered it to Keith Rowley. He said, no, get away. So anyone who questions the Transformation Alliance, and that's why I use the word alliance, Ours is an alliance of minds, regardless of political affiliation. And the hypocrisy of people who are probably in the PNM who have a concern about it. This is the same government where several cabinet ministers presently exist under Keith Rowley that formed the cabal with Patrick Manning to have him removed as from that same cabinet as a minister. And the same Keith Rowley who saw these backstabbers, who threw him out of cabinet, chased him like a dog, he is the one who had brought back these same individuals to be his right hand in the same government and the same cabinet. So when you speak about Jack Warner and Gary Griffith, some of these people in PNM must look in the mirror, because the same people he speaks to right now that are affiliated to him are those persons who worked and conspired with Patrick Manning to throw him out of the same cabinet.
But the UNC also told you get away when you stood up.
No, the point is, why don't you answer that same question? The point is, if it isn't that Keith Rowley was thrown out by his persons, and then he decided to forget and have bygones and say, look, even though you all conspired with Manning to throw me out of cabinet and treat me like a dog, I still want you now. Let us work together to form and reorganize our party. If that was okay, Rendell, but it's not okay that if there's a difference.
Well, the issue of politics and politicians has always been strange bedfellows they make, and it switches and turns on the premise of opportunity. What is strategically right, people mix and match. And so you might be in bed with one person today, and all of a sudden it switches to the next.
Well, Richard, that's the point. And Wendell can't answer that. They kick Rowley out of the bed, and then Rowley brought them back and said, come on, them covers right after.
I will concede a percentage of your point, because you're saying, because the person who attacked Dr. Rowley back then was the prime minister, the leader.
No. It
was the leader. Hold on, let me finish. It was the leader. I don't know that the people who he has embraced, who were also in that cabinet, were also all about on platforms ill-speaking him. They weren't. They were not. The difference here, and again, as I said, I'm willing to concede a part of your point where people can make up. That's not a problem. I have no problem with it. People can make. So if you decide after Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and them kick you out and say, get away from here, that you want to go back with them, if that's your argument, then I will accept that. No.
Let me just quickly complete the main question with Paul, is that many people said, look, when Gary was there, whether it is true or not, whether it's right or not, 89% of the country wanted Gary to remain to secure the country. There's the vast majority, even actually the PNM diehard person said, listen, we felt safer, you were doing the job, public trust and confidence in the police moved from 14 to 55%. The police was motivated. You're seeing a difference. Criminals were being pegged back. You put 100 and stuff plus policies, everything has collapsed. We want you back. We need you. Our country is under siege. The only way I can serve those persons, which is that 89%, is to be in a position of authority to serve them. The only way that could be done is to form a strategic alliance with other parties, so I will have the opportunity. So to anyone who has a concern, what you're trying to tell me, stay on the hard and fast track and go alone and then lose. So that
are you saying it's a means to an end?
It is, because the most critical thing, the most fundamental thing in any country, in any society, in any citizen, is your fundamental right to safety and security. So when you hear that other political leader, Gary is a one-trick pony. I have one trick more than him, and I wasn't known as Mr. Expo. But and then he will go crazy after and go and do a set of videos to attack me, which is what he does.
But do you think that joining with the UNC, do you think that joining with the UNC in that alliance affects brand NTA in any way for some voters?
No, and again, this is what you would have seen. In 1986, when the ONR stood alone, that 91,000 said, no, we do not want to be in the ULF for the PNM. They understood the value. They formed, they worked a strategic alliance in the 83 local government. It worked, and it formed something for 86 for NAR. In 2010, I could admit that it was rushed because Patrick Manning did well. He decided to throw a snap election, and because when he started seeing what was happening, this may very well happen after this local government election. If not, we need more. When it says you form a strategic alliance, you need to have a lot of communication, collaboration, and dialogue, and mutual respect. And that is where the difference you're going to get. I think COP fell not because of what the UNC did, but how COP leadership failed to represent those persons of that bridge constituency. And you will see my actions and my personality. It is different. It's not to attack Winston Dukran or Prakash Ramadan or anyone. But my style is going to ensure mutual relationship, mutual respect, and that type of strategic alliance is going. My concept, gentlemen, is when we're in government, I don't care whether you're UNC or PNM, I want the best minds available. There are some people in the PNM I have the world of respect for. I would love to have those persons be part of a united government.
Who? Like who?
I can't do that. They will lose their job because there's a man who's very vindictive. So the Prime Minister...
There are two comments I want you to respond to that the Prime Minister has made, I think, in the last week in his conversations in different locations. One, that Gary Griffith does not want the public to see the report on FULs for several different reasons. He didn't elaborate. And two, that Jack Warner has realigned with the UNC to avoid extradition. I'd like your responses to both those comments, please.
Sure. Well, the first thing you would have realized that I have taken Keith Rowley to court on about 4 occasions and won almost all. And his misinterpretation of the reason behind the court, now he's attacking the court because if he can't have his way, as Patrick Manning said, he gets totally out of control. So the reason, for people who are misinterpreting how a court operates, a court will file injunctions and approve it and block someone when it is that they realize that the constitutional rights of someone have been infringed, when it is that there's a bias, when it is you're attacking the credibility of someone without evidence or fact. And those are the things that's happening. Keith Rowley understood well how he got in the government in 2015 because you type 21 mistakes, call it an email and call it Emailgate, and got the public to believe it. And that is what helped him in 2015. Gary Griffith is not the same person. When it is you decide to bring fake documents to lie, you better come with facts. So what happened is first he started with a Barrington report. The Police Service Commission said emphatically there's no such thing as a Barrington report. One man typing a document out of 1.4 million who has no authority, and you take that to send to Bliss Prasad in the hope that you could amend a merit list, says a lot about the individual and the character of the man who gave the document. He then realized, okay, then there's a Stanley John report. And the Stanley John report said that there's a well-oiled criminal industry that Keith Rowley has used on the platform. And I'll be seeing him in court again. He'll be on the witness stand soon. Because you have a well-oiled criminal industry, but 2 years later, 2 years since you submitted the report, not one person has been arrested for bribery or corruption as it pertains to firearm issue during my period. But for 2 years, but you claim it's a well-oiled criminal industry. You then hire civilians, pay them big money to then probably put what you want them to put, even though the Police Service Commission says, but wait a minute, you're hiring people to do investigations of the police. The court said, on what grounds can you as a politician hire people to be investigators to investigate an arm of the police? But the important thing, Paul, before I finish that, is that what he said is that I will go to Parliament to read it. You know what? Emailgate reloaded. Because Rowley realizes the one place that you can go and lie and not be sued is in Parliament. So I didn't care about the report. Go ahead and see what you have to do in the report. But go out in public, and you go out in public, I will deal with you. Because if it is that you hire 3 civilians and the civilians lie with no intelligence, no evidence, no witnesses, not one person has been arrested, but he knows, Keith Rowley knows, you say the same lie over and over, people believe it. So what the court said is, don't try that. If this is a report of investigation, it's supposed to go to the police or the PCA or the Police Service Commission. And don't go in Parliament where it is you can lie and with a fake report to smear the character of others and action can be taken. That is my point. You want to say something, even the 3 persons who did the audit, if they name man, let them say it in public and let me deal with you, because that is what they have done. They have lied, gentlemen, 2 years, a well-oiled criminal industry. Not one person, no, not a firearm dealer, not a firearm holder, no civilian, not one of the 7,000 police officers have been arrested for bribery or corruption after the Stanley John's report under my watch. Because you know what? He probably knows if you say the same lie over and over, people believe you.
The Jack Warner situation.
The Jack Warner situation, Keith Rowley can give his interpretation. My take on this matter with Jack Warner is that the UNC has arguably about 250,000 supporters. The NTA will have 150,000 odd. After those 400,000, if it is that we are going to reach a point now...
When you say the NTA has 150,000 supporters, what's the source of that data?
81 ONR, 91,000, 91
you mean potential supporters?
Potentially, yeah, because there's now been...
You didn't say potential, you said supporters.
Well, the fact is, Paul, is that third constituency, that bridge constituency, continues to grow. That's my point. From 91, 127, 147,000 in 2007.
So you're sure you've captured them?
You can't be sure of anything in life until.
But when you said the statement so definitively, no. So I was wondering what was the data point.
The point being is the third constituency, whether it is the NTA, the ABC, or the XYZ, there's that bridge constituency of people who are not PNM till they're dead and are born a UNC and are going to die.
So the Jack Warner situation.
Right. So the Jack Warner situation, if Jack Warner holds a position of authority in the UNC, then people can come and point fingers at Gary Griffith, like, how can you do that? Jack Warner holds no position of authority in the running and the management of the UNC. So the PNM's game plan of saying, because I tell you, the one thing, I worked with Jack Warner in a couple of places. We met 400 people in Lupino, 400 virtually worship the man. They said since he left, there was nothing that has been done by the councillors in Lupino for the last 10 years. The same thing happened when I went to Bonnier, when I went to Aruka, I went to the train line.
There's no doubt that Jack Warner is a very popular person in some quarters in this country. You know? Jack Warner is a very charismatic personality and has done a lot for sport, football in particular, and had been a very productive minister, particularly of works. But the issue is not that, or popularity. The issue is the legal issues facing him with the US. That's the issue of, we're conflating two different things here. Popularity is one thing, but legal issues is something else.
I know, Paul, but what I'm saying, again, that's my point. So every single person who supports the NT or the UNC, we must do a certificate of character. No, the point being is, if they hold no position of authority, but because of his charisma, because of his previous work ethic, because the grassroots in that whole corridor, 95% admire him for what he has achieved, the PNM can't bowl a doostra to point fingers, because if they do that, gentlemen, just give me 1 minute. If you do that, what it is, why do I see the splint in my old eyes when in the eyes of my neighbor, I do see plank in my own? Neither Kamala Prasad Vicesso nor myself have ever been investigated by the Integrity Commission on 2 occasions. In either the UNC and the PN and the NTA, we do not have a minister that was actually charged and is still running the campaign for a corporation. We don't have someone who was fired as a minister for questionable behavior, and then you give him a diplomatic position just a few months ago to represent our country. We do not have someone who was actually being investigated under my watch for putting large sums of money and cash into the bank. And all I know that's
Gary. I mean,
wait a minute. We do not have someone.
Well, I wanted to make a point.
There was an intelligence report by special branch of accusation. So the point is, when you look at those things, look at your own before you decide.
My point is, Gary, there is a portion, and hopefully a substantial portion, of Trinidad and Tobago voters that are tired of all of the politicians and leaders with clay feet in this country. And when we see all of these associations mixing and matching from what we may perceive as an opportunistic point of view, there is a group of those voters in Trinidad and Tobago that are saying, where is the transformational leadership that the country needs? Because we're in a global environment and the rest of the world doesn't really care for what they don't care or are not have no business with the politics of Trinidad and Tobago because they're busy moving their countries forward.
Yeah,
you can find fault. You can find fault with the PNM. You can find fault with the UNC, and there's some people who will find fault with you. So when the voters are faced, and you have jaded voters who have been bitten by alliances before and may see this as just another reconstitution of something that they did not work in their interest last time. How can you motivate these? I'm just asking you this question. How can you motivate that group of Trinidadians and Tobagonians that see all politicians in that kind of light? That ultimately the country suffers because everybody ego stands. Everybody has done some sort of things that has besmirched their reputation, and so that they're like, why should I bother?
Or you can add, willing to sleep with the devil to get in ascendancy, to add to your point. Yeah, and you're correct. And all I can ask the country, judge me by my track record, judge me by my performance, not my deliverables, but my track record based on my ethics. This is a political leader that stood firm and stood on something that caused him to be fired as a Minister of National Security. That hasn't changed. This is a previous commissioner of police that when he was being pressured by politicians to arrest civilians in their homes to breach their constitutional rights, I told him where to get off. And people had a problem with that. So this has been someone, it has not changed. My point being is that if there are persons who may be supporters of other political parties, that does not mean that I have diminished my ethnic principles. And that is the point. So until Jack Warner becomes the deputy political leader, the chairman of the UNC, the man is a supporter of a party. He holds no position of authority. The fear factor, Richard, is that the PNM is pushing this Dustra because they know that Jack Warner has an enormous influence in the grassroots of support. That has nothing to do with him holding a position of authority in a political party. Am I supposed to work with other political parties and make sure there's a certificate of character for every supporter? The answer is no.
So what you're saying is you don't think there's any impact on brand NTA and brand Gary Griffith by having support and working with someone who is of interest to the US authorities? That's what you're saying?
And my point being, again, is that if I have to be selective in working with other political parties based on who supports them, it is going to put me in a position where we will have to go alone, which is what the PNM wanted in the first place. So what they're trying to do is to rub off the shine of that new ball by trying to say Gary Griffith is not all that. Look, he's liming with Jack Warner. That is not, Jack Warner is not part of the NTA1, and he holds no position of authority. My point being is that I'm telling you one thing, because there are persons that I have learned a lot. I have learned a lot from Jack Warner in his work ethic that caused me to be able to be up till 4 o'clock in the morning till 1 a.m. as a commissioner of police for 3 years to serve the country, knowing strategic plannings and so forth to get the job done, which is why I was successful in handling 20,000 persons as security minister and 7,000 as commissioner of police. And that should be the focus. The focus is what I am intent to deliver. Obviously, there's going to be some degree of concern, but as I said,
yeah, let's go down the road. 2025 general election. The NTA, well, the ILP no longer exists. I think they were dissolved, and Jack Warner is now back in the UNC. And all these other small parties, the MND, Gavin, Nicholas, and all you all come together again and wins a general election. Don't you think that Jack Warner will not take a position? One, and what is the position you will take?
Well, the same position I took as the Minister of National Security when I stood firm. Remember, I stood against live sport. I stood against certain things, anything that I thought was incorrect, I will stand against. And to those persons in that bridge constituency, believe and understand that I would ensure that the type of the type of behavior you'd have seen in our politics is going to change. I will stand firm.
So you've already negotiated that you will be the Minister of National Security in a new government?
No, not at all. But it is possible that I should be part of a National Security Council. Who knows what my position would be? And therein lies the problem. That is where the problem took place in the People's Partnership. You're not going to have me or us making decisions and actions without proper dialogue. I don't know what my position could be or what it is going to be. That decision is going to be made.
So let's just also go down that same road. That Anand Ramlogan is reappointed Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. How is that going to work out?
No, but Wendell, you can't say that. You are just.
No, I'm asking a question. I'm not saying anything. It's a question I'm asking.
But you can't. You see, that is the point. You are asking questions of something that suppose Rajali becomes the Minister of National Security for the PNM. What is the logic in the question? Bringing up points of persons who may not be seen as being supportive of the PNM, or who the PNM may not like, or who may be involved in questionable activity. That is, you are speaking about something in 2 years' time. We have not. So, all right, let me give an example.
I'm going down the same road. Richard was going down, just differently. I'm being more direct. In terms of association.
But my point is, suppose in 2 years, Anand Ramlogan is cleared of everything and all wrongdoing. How can I give an answer in 2 years? What you're doing is unfair. You can't ask me what is going to happen in 2 years. Right now, it would be expected that he would not. But so I can't give an answer in what will happen in 2 years.
Well, you're okay with saying that you will be the Minister of National Security.
I'm not. You did. I spoke about when I was minister in in 2013, leading 20,000 persons to ensure it was the highest reduction in serious crime, I would be in a position to ensure that this country would be safe. Who knows what that position would be? But
I want to focus a bit on the districts that your candidates are contesting, because we are counting down to a local government election, and how many candidates are being fielded, just to remind us. And why did you choose the particular districts that your candidates are contesting?
Yeah, sure. So there are 31 candidates from the National Transformation Alliance, inclusive of Diego Martin, Port of Spain, Samuel Laventil, Piarco, Tunapuna Piarco, Arima, and also Point Fortin. The UNC, they will have the other 110. It's not much different to 2010, where the COP had about 50 odd out of the 139. The reason why we didn't take others is because of this weird system that Wendell knows about the selection of aldermen, which really and truly is very crazy. It is crazy. You even reach a point where if a party selects 2 persons in a corporation and there are 14 seats, you have to write down 14 aldermen. We found that out half an hour. And if you don't put down the 14 aldermen, then you cannot get an alderman if you succeed. It makes no sense. It's badly drafted. It was a rush job. I think, however, what we have done is that we have worked in a very strategic manner. Yes, and those 31 seats, Paul, it is probably the hardest seats because that is PNM hardcore areas. People ask, well, why it is we didn't try to require and ask for safe seats. I've never asked for anything in my life that is simple. We wanted to go in the belly of the beast. This was Gary Griffith versus Keith Rowley. And again, from what I have seen in 2010, when those COP voters joined with the UNC voters, Diego Martin Corporation went against the PNM, same thing with Tunapuna, Piarco, same thing with Arima, and same thing with San Fernando. So whereas now it is 7-7, if it goes according to plan, it could very well go back to 11-3. And even with Point Fortin being another avenue, it could be 12-2 best case scenario.
So let's project 2 scenarios. Gary Griffith, scenario 1, Gary Griffith, of his 31 candidates, 15 are successful, 10 are successful, and you gain some leverage on the political scene in Trinidad and Tobago. What is your next step in terms of leverage? And scenario 2, Gary Griffith doesn't do very well. I'm talking about the NT here, of course. And the electorate has said, well, we like you, but not to vote for. What's next? So let's do one first.
Well, I will put both of them in one. Regardless of the scenario, what we have seen is that the NT has become the vehicle, the engine room for persons in that bridge constituency. This is a party that's just about 8 odd months old. And anytime you could have a political leader of a party that's 60 plus years old, spend 47 of the 55 minutes on a platform and get a meltdown in St. James, and spending most of his time tripping, speaking about a leader of a party 8 months old, we have already stamped our authority, our position in this country.
Is it the party or you, though? Because, I mean, you just said it's Keith Rowley versus...
Well, Paul, again, and that is I'm glad you said that, because when it was 2010, what was it really? It was people voting for the Kamala mania over Patrick Manning.
I think it was the prospect of the coalition.
Well, yeah, but there's also a Kamala mania at the time. So, and likewise, so people usually vote for persons based on leadership, based on that personality. And again, as much as you have a party, there obviously there will be certain places that you could bring Barack Obama into a hardcore area of another party. He's not going to win. But my point being is that third constituency will always be there. And there is a need for persons to have that opportunity. So this has built a platform towards something bigger, which is the general election. So that platform is there. You would have seen it. And as I said, when you look at the votes in those 31 seats, PNM won every seat by about 400 plus votes. That is a big number when you take the scheme of local government election. You might say 400 as marginal. 400 is about 30% more than the other party.
It would be remiss of us to have you here and not talk about issues related to citizen security and the stand your ground and the issue of the FURs, which the Prime Minister has indicated had gone under your tenure as commissioner from X to over 50,000. I think 58,000 is the number indicated. On one hand, the issue of persons being able to protect themselves vis-a-vis Mrs. Prasad-Bissessa's comments has received some traction because people are afraid and frightened in a scenario where they don't feel the police service is as effective as it should be. On the other side of that that conversation is how many guns is too many guns on the streets legally. I'm talking about legally obtained FULs and persons having the ability to protect themselves when they feel that, well, police can't do it. Your comments on that?
Yeah, when this issue with myself and Firearms, that was just one of about 170 things I did to transform the police service. And I have been blamed and criticized for being efficient, for being effective. Commissioners before me and after me, because of their failure to do the job, and they try to use justification, it takes time. 200, 300 odd firearms would be issued annually before me, and the same thing is taking place after me. In my 3 years, I issued 4,500. That 4,500, every single thing that Keith Rowley said has been false, misleading, and very mischievous. Because I issued 4,500 firearms, half of that would have been to law enforcement officials, police officers, prison officers, soldiers, sailors who needed it.
FULs is talking.
Yeah. Because we have an outdated system that after there's a threat on you as a police officer or prison officer, you have to leave your firearm in the station and go home, and you can't protect yourself. So half of that was per person. You want to question that? So remaining will be 2,000 civilians.
The suggestion is that the increase in FULs was a business, and I'm putting that out for you to respond to.
And if it was a business, how come after 2 years for a well-oiled industry to be such a criminal enterprise, so well-oiled, that not one person has been arrested after the Stanley John report and after this audit of any such wrongdoing under my watch? In other words, it was a lie. What we have known is that for decades we have heard about this, and what Gary Griffith did is put an FUL card with a chip to monitor. They threw it away because they knew what they were doing. We knew that police officers were in stations holding back people's applications to make sure that they could blackmail and have bribery. Supply and demand is the biggest avenue for corruption. You make it harder for the individual, you force them to pay. What I did was to open it up and to make sure it was available, not giving it away as Keith Rowley lied, because he said we were giving it away.
When opening it up, were the checks and balances put in place to ensure that the bribery corruption issue, because you're doing more now in a scenario where in a division or an agency that has been accused of using that mechanism to make money illegally. And now you are giving out more. So were the mechanisms put in place to ensure that with increased granting of those FULs, that persons didn't benefit from bribery, etc.?
Correct.
Yeah. So in other words, let me just add to what Paul is saying there. In other words, you're saying that before you came in there, it was in fact well-oiled.
No, there were allegations of it being well-oiled, and I had to find avenues to pinpoint what was causing it. So what was causing it would have been police officers holding back the applications in stations for years. And that was where the corruption took place. And they were holding it back in whichever station and saying, you have to pay me before it gets upstairs there. I said, you have 3 months, because remember the officers at those areas have to do due diligence, they have to do the background check, they have to go and visit. So they can easily say, well, it's going to take us about 3 years and keep charging persons. I put an end to it by saying after 3 months, you bring it there. And then what also, Paul, is that the 2,000 persons, to show that our system was so comprehensive, we did such a comprehensive background check. More incidents took place before me of negligent discharges, persons losing their firearms and using their firearms in an illegal manner than in my 2,000. Because in all that 2,000, not one was ever lost, not one was ever stolen, not one was used for a crime under my watch, because we had a proper system, and the card with the chip would have ensured we're monitoring the individual, making sure that he will come every year to be tested, to know to use the weapon. And that was the point. And so in that 2,000, it worked. So and out of those 2,000, it was over 50,000 applicants. So 2,000 out of 1.4 million, I think is like 0.15% of the population. And this man has the audacity to say that means Kamala and Gary want to give a gun to everyone. The hypocrisy adds, when this was the same Keith Rowley that was harassing me to get a dealership license to sell firearms for somebody he knows in Tobago and to bill a range. This was the same Keith Rowley, along with the present Minister of National Security and the previous Commissioner of Police. Between them, they asked for over 70 firearms to give to their friends and family members. So it's okay to give to the rich and famous, but me looking to give firearms to the small man, to the farmer, to the businessman.
Aren't you doing the same thing, Gary, making unsubstantiated and unevidenced comments in terms of what you're saying there? Because you're accusing the Prime Minister of doing that.
If it's you want me to show you the names of it? You really want to go down that road, Wendell? You want to go down that road? Do you want me to call the names of the people?
I'm just saying.
It's unsubstantiated. Don't call me a liar. You want me to go down the
I'm not saying that.
I will call names now, you know.
Hold on a second.
Inclusive of ministers who got 2 firearms and didn't pay for it. You want me to call names?
No, you want to get our station in trouble. I'm just saying you're one thing and you're doing basically. It is not.
I am giving fact. Wendell, he's willing to provide the evidence.
I am giving fact.
Well, you don't have to provide it to us here.
Well, if just says unsubstantiated, you can't be half pregnant. Don't call me a liar.
Why don't you release the information to the media?
But I have, but the thing is, the PNM control stations refuse to state that this is a man who told me he wants a firearm dealership for his partner in Tobago to sell thousands of guns. But this is the same man who's concerned about firearms.
So you're saying you release this information to the media and they refuse to publish or broadcast it?
Paul, I've said this numerous occasions and it is ignored because the PNM narrative is Gary want to give out guns to everyone. I just said it, 2,000 firearms out of 50,000 applicants.
You're willing to take some calls? We're going to go for a bit because it's,
2,000 firearms to 50,000 applicants. And this comedian says that is giving out firearms to everyone. He's a hypocrite.
All right, no, I guess that's political leader. Gary Griffith. 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255. Please be respectful. Toll free in North Americans, 866-525-1099. Tomorrow, our guest will be Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley.
Gary, you know the UNC don't have any need for you again with Jack Warner wrong, right? You know that, right? I tell you that already, you know.
Well, if that was your concern, well, then you have nothing to worry about. Why expecting that now?
I am worried.
Results on Monday. If you're so sure about that.
I do not campaign in St. James West where you have a candidate, but I haven't seen them or heard from them. I wish you, I can't wish you luck because, I wish you luck.
All right. Well, let's grab the calls. Caller, make it short, sweet, to the point. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I would have never I heard this thing about politics and morality of it too, but Mr. Griffith, you make me believe that the kind of ketchup and mustard talk you used to talk, and the kind of thing I hear you say about Kamala Prasad, Mr. in Parliament, or you attend Parliament, and then you yourself on a political platform and say, I work with Patrick Manning, I work with this one, and that is the best Prime Minister. I couldn't believe I hear you saying that. You are the ketchup.
All right. What is your question?
I hear you saying that.
Is there a question, sir?
Question.
And the next thing, in that UNC party, Mr. Griffith, I don't see how it could not have been good then and it's so good now to be the vehicle for you to move with. If you have your own party, go with your what party. It wasn't good at all. It's all
right. Thank you, caller.
No. All right. The typical PNM, they are concerned, they are worried. Because, as I said, it was okay for several cabinet members who teamed up with Patrick Manning to throw Keith Rowley out of cabinet. And the same Keith Rowley hired these people and worked with them. And then, why did, it's strange that Wendell and them wouldn't bother to answer that. The fact of the matter is
I conceded that point. I conceded that point.
But there you go.
I conceded
All right.
that.
Let's get a question, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Gary Griffith. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm surprised you call it the people that didn't ask the question. Gary Griffith, I heard you say that the Prime Minister had asked you to give one of his family members a FUL permit. In your statement, the FUL permit was granted. I also heard you say that he asked for several ministers. Several ministers has asked, and you have given some of them 2 firearms, so they were granted. So from what you are testifying, the Prime Minister could encourage the Commissioner of Police to do their will.
Okay, I think that's about the dumbest question I've heard to this whole campaign. One, I never said the Prime Minister asked for his family member. 2, I never said the Prime Minister instructed. So, I mean, I've heard some questions, but you just stopped it there. The point being is that if a Prime Minister makes a request, it is his right to make a request. As Minister of National Security, I would have sent dozens of requests to Stephen Williams because it will come from the business sector, writing to me and so forth. The fact, what I'm showing is the hypocrisy. So because Keith Rowley will ask me for firearms, the same persons who are the same names must have the same due diligence, the same background check, because it is at the end of the day, when I sign that, I become responsible. So no politician could direct me, brother. You must understand and speak and understand English. What I said is that, why is it okay that you can make a request for 70 firearms for people close to you? I never said I approved all. You must listen first before you get politically blinded. What I showed is that if it's okay that politicians can make a request for dozens of firearms, Why the small man, the businessman, the farmer, the fisherman can't make a request and have it equally recognized for them to get a firearm? It must not be, firearms must not be.
Do you think that that whole firearms issue should be the province of a separate unit that has nothing to do necessarily with the police?
No, you see, Richard, and that is the point. I put 14 policies to put an end to the corruption. Because I affected big business in the police service, certain persons had the ears of politicians and they misled them. Stanley John's report was littered with, it is alleged, it is rumored, I have heard. And Stanley John will also go on a witness stand shortly and say, you are saying it's a well-oiled enterprise? Show how. Call names. Bring evidence. There wasn't any. What I did was put systems in place. I was the commissioner, the only commissioner in our history that kept telling people, if you have any evidence of wrongdoing, blackmail, corruption, report it not just to the police, but to the PCA. I was the only one. What they tried, the PNM is very good. You turn on something and you lie constantly, you hope that people will blindly believe it. How could we say that there's an issue with firearms? What is the evidence? Who are the witnesses? Who has been charged?
Gary, let me ask this question.
All right, let's take this call here. We have calls, gentlemen.
Yeah, when you were commissioner of police, did such reports come to you, and was any action taken against anybody?
Yeah, I got reports, and then I will launch sting operations. I will use the special operation response team that was instrumental to stop kidnappings, human trafficking, home invasions that the PNM decided to shut down with lies to say that the US they wanted a vetted unit. The SWAT was the only vetted proper operational unit that the PNM shut down. And when we did those sting operations, we'll pinpoint certain police officers. But again, there's a difference with intelligence and evidence. Immediately as I pinpointed officers who may be inclined to do something, I will remove them immediately from that system, because that system was being carefully monitored to stop that.
So no convictions came out of it at all?
A few, about 2 or 3 persons, we did sting operations with police officers going by their car.
They were charged? They were charged? And they were charged?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a call waiting. Go ahead, Steve, please.
Good morning, caller. Thank you for holding. Question.
Good morning. Good morning to the Power Breakfast family. Good morning to the Power Breakfast crew. Good morning, Mr. Gary Griffith. I have to make 2 comments, which is like a question also. And
Go ahead.
Get offended, because it seems like you're getting hot under the collar.
Yeah, question, caller.
Wait, could you guys give me 1 second, please? All right.
We have lots of calls coming through. I just want a question, so go ahead.
If you get interrupted, I can't make my statement. When Jack Warner and Kamala Assad-Bethesda and Mr. Griffith, they were at the podium and Jack Warner was speaking, he indicated if elected, he will be back as National Security Minister. Gary will be the police commissioner, and Kamala will be the leader. That's one thing I had to say. Number 2.
No, he didn't say that. That's a lie. That's not true. He didn't say that.
Mr. Griffith, when you were police commissioner, it's not alleged. You had a racket going on with the gun running operations, and they were giving money to your son's football league. All right?
Okay, stop.
Wait, I want to get the name of that person, please. Can you please give the name?
I do have.
Gentlemen, you can't people. I need to sue. There's a Dinorine Dial. He just had to pay me $150,000 for the same thing.
That's a foreign call too, eh?
We're going to stop that.
This is what I want. I want the PNM fanatics to call names and say it. I am making good money by suing people for lying. That is the
next
campaign.
Callers, please just ask a question.
Steve, they cannot. The PNM is panicking. That is why these jokers are coming on with lies. That is the PNM propaganda. They lie. And you can't call in.
We have time to take 1 more call.
Can you ask
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Go ahead.
I would like Gary Griffith always say that crime went down while he wasn't. Remember, it had curfew, right? And then it had the 2 years of COVID. So crime must go down because if you're inside, you can't come out to do your mischief, right? And he always feel that everything that other people say is lie, and he always right. I find it very disingenuous with himself. Right? And everything is
That's not a question. Thank you.
God, you're boring people with your PNM propaganda. So let me answer that quickly, Paul.
Gary, why are you assuming everybody who have a problem challenge is it PNM?
Wendell, but you know what it is. It
might be PDP, it might be MSJ,
the PNM is well structured to lie.
It might be PEP.
It might be PEP. Philip ain't holding back words against you now.
Question, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
All right, so quickly, so to answer that question, when the crime started reducing was 3 months before COVID started. If you recall, in Carnival 2020, it was regarded as the safest carnival ever. There was not even one incident. So that reduction took place before COVID. After I left as Commissioner of Police in October, November 2021, it was the highest number of murders, the second and third in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. That was still during COVID state of emergency public health regulations. 3, I didn't know that these people, that criminals had some type of a memo to say, well, I'm not going to kill or rape because of COVID or because of public health regulations. Because in the United States, Boston, Detroit, LA, New York City, almost every city, crime went up because of COVID. In Guyana and Jamaica, after COVID, crime actually went down because in contrast to, again, the false narrative being pushed. When it is you have a situation like a public health regulation and you have situations like that, there's going to be unemployment, there's going to be inflation, cost of living is going to go up, people are going to lose their jobs. And that is what caused many persons to commit crime throughout the United States. And in Jamaica and Guyana, after COVID, after the public health regulation, there was a massive reduction in crime. So I guess the murderers and the rapists and the home invaders in Guyana and Jamaica didn't read the memo by the PNM people to say, well, it's during COVID, we're supposed to have a reduction. So that false narrative. And additionally, the majority of the crimes taking place in this country now is during broad daylight, which was the same time. And so whether it was health regulations or not, people were allowed to walk around during the day. So that concept that you had, it's false, it's misleading. The facts have just shown that under my watch in that last year, it was the highest reduction in every crime. And it was not just about crime, it had to do with public trust and confidence in the police going up from 14 to 55%, crime become number 4 concern behind health, education, and the economy. And that is because the character traits I bring, again, the guy who says I'm a one-trick pony, I have one trick more than you, brother. But it's not just about law enforcement. It's about leadership. It's about management. It's about motivating police officers to turn them into something that had the country believing in them. And that's the same thing that I intend
Gary,
to do.
as a PNM person, as a PNM person, I could tell you that you did make a difference as Commissioner of Police. I could tell you that live on it. You did make a difference. You didn't get, I thought you fell in line after. I thought you fell in, no, I'm telling you, I supported you as Commissioner of Police. I supported your ascension because I felt that the police needed somebody who didn't come up to the ranks because that police service is rotten. But I thought you would have made that huge difference. And unfortunately, at the end, you fell in line with the nonsense that they were doing.
But what's the nonsense? Wendell, the nonsense. Wendell, what is the nonsense? I wasn't the one who interfered with a merit list. I topped a merit list. What it is that Wendell, let me tell you something. The same PNM people who are attacking me now, if Kid Rowley jumps and say, I made a mistake, Gary's the best thing since sliced bread, you know that. They will blindly say, yeah, I agree, I support Gary again. I ask the country, stop being blinded by politicians. Look at the data, look at the individual, and make a decision which is best for you and the country. Stop
Mr. Griffith, your closing comments in light of our time being up to your candidates and the country for LGE 2023 on Monday.
I ask the country, make a decision based on what is best for you, for your community, for your country. Stop blindly following political leaders. If it is you feel that someone has the political will, the policies, the programs, the plans to make life better for you, which is what I would have done as a Commissioner of Police, as a Minister of National Security, I give the assurance to the country, I will do the same for you. I can make your corporation safer. I can make your community safer. The only way we can do that is if we win. So I ask you on August the 14th, look for that symbol with that lighthouse and the triangle, vote for the NTA candidate. And if it is that you're in another location and there's a UNC candidate, I ask those two constituency supporters, send Keith Rowley and PNM a message, loud and clear, enough is enough. It is time to transform Trinidad and Tobago.
Griffith, thank you for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your contribution.
And we ain't touched on Philip Alexander yet, eh?
Oh gosh, don't start. Oh gosh.